what is the one lesson I could convey to everybody
Mm-hmm.
is get over it.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
It's never going to help you. In fact, it's actually going to hurt you.
Yeah.
What you think about grows. So why not think about what you've done well, what you can do to promote your practice, maybe add different things in your practice that will help people as opposed to, oh my gosh, this person quit. Rah, 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 rah.
All right, welcome to another episode of Straight to Health. My name is Dr. Gavin Hall. I have a practice here in St. George, Utah. The goal of this podcast is to help you learn something new about your body, about healing, bring you closer to the place where you can get out of pain and better your life. Last episode, you heard Dr. Derek Huddleston kind of share his specialty in his practice. Today, I wanted to bring on another guest speaker. This is my mentor. He's the one who taught me everything in chiropractic school. In chiropractic school, we go through the classes and we kind of go through the motions to pass the class. And I hope he today explains a little bit about why and how that's different than what he does. But the guest speaker is Dr. Mark Charette. He is very well known throughout the world for chiropractic adjusting. And I had the pleasure of living kind of close to him and being taught directly by him on a hands-on experience, one-to-one experiences. So I wanted to bring you on here, Doctor. Go ahead and say hi to everyone.
Greetings, folks. Great to be here.
So thank you for spending some time with me this evening for this episode. But go ahead and share a little bit about you, about why you became a chiropractor.
Well, I'm almost 71 years old now, and way back in the 1970s, I graduated high school and assumed that due to the fact that I worked on ambulances during the summer, that I would eventually go to medical school and be an ER doctor. And so that was my early training. I was also a swimmer on scholarship and graduated from Illinois State University. And when I was a senior, I did a flip turn in the pool and missed the wall and, quote, threw my back out. And my roommate, Jerry Loy, with his Southern Illinois accent, said he was going to take me to his chiropractor. And so a couple of our teammates kind of hauled me into this chiropractor's office. And I had no idea what a chiropractor was. And so he treated me. And this was on a Tuesday. And the following day, I went in for a follow-up feeling really pretty good. And that weekend, we happened to swim against Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame's not a swimming power, and this was in their old 5-lane pool. But we not only beat Notre Dame, but I set a pool record and did my best time ever. And so I started looking into chiropractic. And to make a long story short, I ended up enrolling in chiropractic school, even after being accepted to medical school. So that's kind of my background.
That's super cool. So it went from being a swimmer to being a chiropractor.
Yes, definitely.
And what year did you go to school? What year did you graduate, I should ask?
I graduated chiropractic college in 1980. So I graduated high school in 72, got my bachelor's in education in 76 from Illinois State, and then in 1980 graduated from Chiropractic College, Palmer College in Davenport, Iowa.
So Iowa, that's awesome. That's super cool. Now, could you go on and share a little bit about your story on you now? What do you do now? You have a practice. Tell me a little about what you currently do now.
Yeah, I was in private practice originally in the Bay Area in California all through the 80s. And back then, practice was very different from today in that back then, chiropractors had insurance equality. So it was kind of insurance driven, if you will. And things were done in a certain way. You took x-rays, you adjusted a patient, you put them on a treatment schedule, and the insurance company paid, and life was really good. Many chiropractors call the 1980s the Mercedes 80s because chiropractors financially were on par with medical doctors. So the incomes were high, and we enjoyed a very good lifestyle. And then at the end of the 1980s, managed care came in, what are called preferred provider organizations, PPOs, where they could limit and restrict different things, so many chiropractors to different zip codes. And so the practice changed a lot, and that it was more of a patient pays the fee, what we call in chiropractic a cash practice. So I've evolved over the years into a full-time, what I call hobby practice, where I'm in a very small office instead of having huge office with a lot of office staff, associates, staff members who bill insurance and whatnot. I'm kind of what we call a one-man show now, where I'm only seeing two people an hour. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but I do a different type of protocol on patients called whole body adjusting, where I not only adjust the spine, but I check based on indicators, feet, knees, hips, wrist, elbows, and shoulders.
That's awesome. That's actually the next question that I wanted to ask you was, because that's what I was trained in, right? You trained me in feet, knees, hips, wrists, elbows, shoulders, full spine, and even the jaw.
Yes, and ribs.
Yep, ribs.
And basically anywhere there's a joint. And so the way this came about is it could be a very lengthy story, but in the late 1980s, I was diagnosed with a cancer that spread throughout my body, and they told me I would never see my 40th birthday. And I'm now going to be 71 in September, so I guess I kind of beat that. But basically, I speak German fluently, and I ended up in Germany for treatment, and ended up by fate, by God, by destiny, whatever you want to call it, working with a bunch of German biomechanics experts. And when I was in school, there was no courses called extremity adjusting. And extremity adjusting is everything other than the spine, the feet, the knees, the hips, the wrists, the elbows, the shoulders, the jaw, the TMJ, and your ribs. And so what I was able to do is initially piggyback these folks who were trying to find misalignment patterns in the lower extremity. And so if you can picture a treadmill and a person walking on a treadmill, what we did back in the 1990s over a 3-year period, and without getting in too much detail, we used a European version of bone and skin markers and walked the patients on these treadmills, and we tracked 53 different motions from what's known as heel strike, when the heel hits, to toe off. And we found 7 misalignments in the foot that eventually came what I call my pronation protocol. Pronation is a condition that's developed in most adults where the ankles roll inward and the bones, what are called the tarsal bones in the foot, misalign in a specific pattern. So I use those along with a pattern in a knee and a hip to start my protocols in a very specific way. Because before the 1990s, I used more of what you might think of as a mobilization manipulation procedure, because most chiropractors, even to this day, just adjust the spine.
Yeah.
And so I was able, over the years, to understand initially mechanical relationships. This bone goes this way, that bone goes that way. And very simply, if a bone goes in one direction, we go in the other direction and then stabilize it with either tape, braces, orthotics, those types of things, and then do some rehabilitation, which is exercises. So my initial protocol was what I called ASR, A, which was adjust or treat the misalignment. Then S was stabilize or stabilize or with tape, those types of things. And then R was rehab. And so I developed protocols for feet, knees, and hips. And then later on in the 1990s, I was able to do the same motion X-ray studies on wrists, elbows, shoulders, TMJ, and ribs. And so that's basically how my protocols developed.
Mm-hmm.
And it became a curriculum in 9 different colleges worldwide over time. 6 of those are in the United States. So when Dr. Hall came to Dallas to go to school, I actually met him at a recruiting seminar because my wife just happened to be one of the head recruiters at the time. And since then, she's been promoted to other positions. And Gavin was actually her work study person. And that's how I was introduced to Gavin initially.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how we met. And I took Gavin kind of under my wing. And he and his wife and his first child, we kind of became an extended family, doing various things other than school. And so it's been just a pure joy seeing Gavin bloom, so to speak, utilizing what I taught him.
Mm-hmm. And I've been super grateful to use all the adjustments and the knowledge that I've learned. It's very different than standard chiro. I would say that people who get adjusted by me, when I do your full body protocol, they'll say something effective. Do you do that every time? And I say, well, yeah, if your feet aren't in the right place, the foundation up idea, if your foundation's not stable, then everything up the line is just going to fall apart a lot sooner than it could be. So let's start at the feet.
Yeah. I had the incredible fate luck of meeting a person named Dr. Monty Greenewalt as a student.
Mm-hmm.
Way back in 1978, like many starving students, I was looking for a part-time job. And this is in Davenport, Iowa. And there was a company called Foot Levelers, and it was started in 1952 by Dr. Greenewalt, and he developed foot orthotics to help stabilize the feet so that the spine would stabilize. His product was called spinal pelvic stabilizers. Well, it just so happened he bought a mansion in Davenport, and he hired some of the students from the school I was going to do all kinds of what I call grunt work, painting, grass cutting, tree cutting, all these different things. And when the house was done, he actually asked me to move in and be his assistant. So I learned about orthotics as a student in a time when most chiropractors not only didn't know anything about orthotics, but it was almost unheard of. It was very small in the profession. So I started out doing an exam that I developed as a student called From the Ground Up. And so right from the very beginning, I started looking at the feet, knees, hips, even though they didn't hurt. And then as I learned in my career, not just the mechanical aspects of this, but the neurological aspects. And kind of brings me to another point where what makes my protocols very different is I don't center on symptoms or pain. I center on an indicator. So when I just put my blinders on and just focus on what I find, it works the best. So if a person comes in with a knee problem, yeah, I'm going to look at the spine, feet, knees, and hips on that patient. I'm not just going to look at the knee, so to speak. To this day in chiropractic, extremity adjusting, anything other than the spine is considered a specialty. And um, later on in the 1990s, late 1990s, early 2000s, I started to learn neurology. And I was confronted by a German neurologist, a medical doctor, who was at one of my seminars in Germany. And in Germany, if you've got good information, it doesn't matter if you're a chiropractor, a physiotherapist, whatever, they listen. And so he was very much impressed with my stuff, but he kind of confronted me and he said, "You're a chiropractor, aren't you?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm thinking in my head, "Oh no, here it comes." And he says, "This is great stuff." He says, "But you're missing the big point." He says, "As a chiropractor, you're working with the nervous system, and you have not mentioned anything about the nervous system."
Mm.
He says, "Do you understand what you're doing neurologically?" And I'm kind of like, no. And so he kind of shamed me in a way to learning very high level neurology. And so I've incorporated that into my explanations. And a really easy explanation is you could have say, low back pain with no pain in your feet, knees, and hips, but the very small misalignments that occur in the feet, knees, and hips can send signals up to your low back and make your low back actually hurt. So that's why I focus on an indicator as opposed to a symptom. I use some therapies like ice, cold laser, and then I also do a bunch of therapeutic exercises along with almost every one of my patients wears functional orthotics where the three arches of the feet are supported and allow for normal motion of the foot in a balanced way. Because what the majority of adults worldwide develop is not only pronation, this inward rolling of the ankles and feet, but it's what we call asymmetrical. It's uneven. So when the foot pronates, it actually gets flatter. So I always give the question of how are you going to get the pelvis level if one foot rolls in more than the other? Hey, but my feet don't hurt. Well, they don't have to hurt and usually don't hurt. So that's kind of one of the basis that I really hit hard with the group that Dr. Hall was with when he went through school. And, I would run them through a lot of drills. And so one of the things that I was asked to kind of prepare a question is how does what I do differ? And one of the biggest things is how I teach. I knew that I had good material. And at one point in 2012, I realized I was trying to do these weekend 12-hour seminars all across the country and all across the world and try to teach doctors how to do feet, knees, hips, wrist, elbows, and shoulders. And so I would usually use the right side of the body as the example, and we would go through the protocol once on each one for time reasons. Well, I found that people after a while were not leaving competent. So I went back to school, and prior to that, I had a master's degree and a bachelor's degree in teaching, so I assumed I was a teacher and knew how to teach, and actually I didn't. And so I got a degree in what's called deliberate practice, which involves a lot of repetition. And so Dr. Hall was part of multiple groups that would pair up, and I would have the big screen in front with videos, and they would say, see, put your left hand here, put your right hand here, bring it to what we call tension and thrust. And we would do it slowly at first, and then pick up speed and pick up speed and pick up speed so that when a person would leave the seminar, they would actually be competent. So I not only have a different type of a technique that incorporates the whole body, but it's kind of the way that I teach it. I'm kind of a drill sergeant, and I'm not really your friend in class. I push you. What most people don't realize is when they're getting better, they're uncomfortable. And so the reason that I would get faster and faster is not for them to get faster, but for them to keep being uncomfortable. So Dr. Hall has literally done thousands of repetitions of my protocols. And so he actually got to the point where he helped me instruct. And that's kind of a hard thing to do in my world, as Dr. Hall will tell you.
It's been great to learn. All the repetition was great because the more times you do it, it has stuck. And I'm pretty sure I can do a full body adjustment with my eyes closed. And
Absolutely.
other than tripping on maybe the table around with my feet, I think I
That's
could.
music to my ears.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Because you never know, your legacy and this and that. I've never put much into that. I had a very conservative Christian father
Mhm.
who said, my power is in my humility. And if he ever caught me bragging, he would kick my butt. So I've never been kind of a person to ring my own bell. But I know that I've influenced a lot of chiropractors around the world to do this type of system. And I think it results in a better quality of care with the patients. Yeah.
I would agree. And it kind of brings up a new caliber of doctor and physician as well. Because now that there are more people who are trained by you, and I would say a few other extremity adjusters. And I know in previous conversation that you have reasons why many of the adjustments performed by other practitioners either don't help or can be dangerous in some ways. I don't necessarily want to get into those, but the emphasis is just being that you put a lot of research into it, and so the style and the protocol that you've put in place is for a reason.
Yeah. And like I say, the way I teach, but everybody can do my protocols.
Yeah.
It does take some work, some effort. You can do some variations, but it's always, I have found best to do it the way I do it because I've gone through so many, like an evolution. And so people end up coming to the same conclusions as I do most of the time, that this is a good way. And so it's just one way, but everybody can do it. And it does make a huge difference when you've got low back pain and you address feet, knees, and hips that are either asymptomatic or relatively asymptomatic. And so, like the proof is in the pudding that way. So, like I said, there's Dr. Derek, the doctor who was on prior to this, he's also in the same group as Gavin,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Hall, excuse me. And so he's been through the same type of thing. So he's enjoying a lot of success, and he was also one of my instructors. So really proud of these young men and what they've accomplished already.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been fun to use it. I mostly the purpose of inviting you onto this podcast was to help that legacy live on, to share with the world that you have changed chiropractors as a whole. How many chiropractors would you guess you have trained and taught?
Yeah, you asked me, and I just kind of did a rough guesstimate. I've taught over 2,200 seminars worldwide. Probably 5,000 presentations if you include all the student stuff that I've done.
Wow.
And somewhere conservatively between 80 and 100,000 different chiropractors worldwide.
That's incredible. That's incredible. You're an incredible person.
Oh, thank you.
You've really changed chiropractic. So I commend you for that, and thank you. I wanted to ask a little bit of a different question to shift ideas here, because I've kind of mentioned that, in my opinion, the people who have gone through your training now are a little bit above and beyond the standard of chiropractic with just a neck adjustment, a back adjustment. We'll see you next time.
Yes.
But why did chiropractic, I think you lived through that era. Where and why did chiropractic become quote unquote quackery? Because right now we're not necessarily considered. There's a lot of people that will say, "Oh, well, if you can't help me, I'll just go see my doctor." And I'm sitting there going, "Well, I am a doctor actually." So when did we lose the ability to be called doctors?
Yeah, that's one of those battles that I've chosen not to fight anymore.
Sure.
I think the younger you are, the more the ego pops up.
Okay.
I was an expert witness for many, many years. in work comp and personal injury cases in California. And they would intentionally call me Mr. Charette or Chiropractor Charette.
Ouch.
So in my younger days, I got kind of put on notice by the judge that one more outburst like that and you can on. But a couple different times I would say things like, "Thank you so much for referring to me as Chiropractor Charette instead of my legal uh, designation as Dr. Charette. I have a Doctor of Chiropractic degree, but I'm glad you did that because now I'm not going to be confused with that guy." And I would point to the witness, and the judge did not think that was good. And it was just one of those immature kind of crazy things. But the fact is that we're trained. We get a Doctor of Chiropractic degrees. If somebody chooses not to accept that, then that's their deal, not mine. And it doesn't bother me at all. That way, or you're not a real doctor. I mean, I went to school in the 70s when typically, even as a joke, some of my patients referred to me as a quack, like not bad for a quack.
Yeah.
And so I would just say stuff like, "Look, I give everybody one chance and you just used yours. Okay. You're never going to use that term around me again."
Ouch.
They just learned it. And so, I mean, it's, one of those things, but there was an effort that was brought to a court battle where the chiropractic profession sued the medical and osteopathic professions and won for having a systematic scheme, if you will, to eliminate chiropractors, and had their medical doctors tell their patients, "Don't go to chiropractors, they can harm you," and whatnot. So today it's a whole different world. I mean, the chiropractors are in the military, they're in the VA. Virtually every single professional sports team in the United States has a chiropractor. I mean, I've been a chiropractor for several pro teams, a bazillion college teams, whatnot, Olympic, those types of things. So the people that actually utilize our services know what we do. Some people have more of a focus on the whole body like we do. Others are just spinal doctors. And there's an incredible number of multidisciplinary clinics that have medical doctors, osteopaths, physical therapists, chiropractors, all on the same page.
Which I love those practices.
Yeah, in the VA, chiropractors work right alongside the physical therapist, and they do what's best for the patient. So we chiropractors are trained to an extreme that if we can't help somebody, to refer them to somebody who can.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done that my whole career, and I believe almost every chiropractor I know, when you get stuck, you go, "Look, I don't know, I don't understand why I'm not helping this, but obviously it's not working." And so sometimes I will refer to another chiropractor who utilizes a different technique.
Mm-hmm.
And with what I've done in my career, people think, "Oh, you must get everybody well." No, I don't. Nobody gets everybody there. I mean, I run into these problem cases like everything else, but I know that when I can't help somebody, I'm not going to keep doing what is not working. So yeah, we all have our place,
Mm-hmm.
that type of thing. And different people have different focuses. Some people really want something natural. Like if you've got a mechanical problem causing all kinds of symptomatology, nerve pressure, this type of thing, wouldn't you want to go to somebody who addresses that? But you could also go to someone who uses analgesics and drugs and can cover it up.
Sure.
Sometimes the pain is so great that you need to have some medication on a very short-term basis. So that's why working together and having a good referral system, is very important.
I agree, 100%. I guess following into that, following that question, I wanted to ask a secondary question. You mentioned that you can send to other chiropractors in the event, or other physicians in general. Is that, or better yet, what does make a great chiropractor or physician, for that matter? What differentiates the great physicians from the good physicians?
I would have to say in chiropractic, okay, those people who go to chiropractic school
Hmm.
know that there's a science behind it. I mean, there's plenty of research, no matter what anybody says. There's bazillions of research projects that have been completed that shows what we do is effective. So the science part, then the art part, which is the how to adjust. And that's what takes many years to develop
Hmm.
and get really good at. And then there's a philosophy that we chiropractors prescribe to that was developed by the people who started the profession, D.D. Palmer and his son, B.J. Palmer. And so there's a philosophy, kind of like the body, for the most part, is self-healing. And if you line it up very well, let the nerves flow to all of the different tissues, you feed it properly, you exercise it, you pray, these types of things, that you'll do great. So with those three things, art, science, art, and philosophy, my answer is the great chiropractors have an incredible passion. They want to share this with people, and they are willing to spend time, go the extra mile, continually make themselves better, doing kind of what you're doing podcasts, out there educating people and whatnot. So it's a passion for the art, science, and philosophy of chiropractic that I think makes a great chiropractor.
Well said. Well said. I think those that are the loudmouths are also the ones who like to learn, because I can't tell you how many times I would ask you 100 questions on, well, why is it this way?
Mm-hmm.
And you could give me a great, clear answer on how, what, and why. But I think that extra mile is a great point. It's a great point.
It truly is. Yeah. It's the people that are willing, like when you and I would stay up late, talk, when you would stay after and we would work harder. That's what makes the great people.
Mm-hmm.
Doing what is not expected.
Yeah. I remember one of the fun things that I would do as well is after we would go through our training each Sunday for about, I think I told you I did this, right? Each Sunday for about 6 months, I went down to a homeless shelter with other chiros and other chiro students, and under the guide of chiropractors, licensed and all, we would go and just adjust, and we would treat.
Yes.
Patient after patient for almost 2 hours every Sunday for about 6 months.
Yes.
And
Repetition.
That's exactly it.
Repetition is the engine of learning. How many times have you heard me say that?
A lot of times. And so that's why I did that.
If I could explain neurology, you'd see that it takes about 1,000 repetitions minimum to get good at anything.
Yeah.
So when you do it a few hundred times, you're okay, but you're not there yet. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think we've had the conversation a couple times as well. But as much as school tries to get you to practice, we have at least one class on how to adjust and manipulate the spine every semester, from when we start chiropractic day one to when we finish and begin our clinics. As much as I would love to say that we get a lot of repetitions, I don't know that we get a lot of repetitions unless you actively went out and searched for them. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and that's what I learned in my last doctorate degree, is that it has to be a controlled environment, meaning you have to be able to be in a situation where you're pushed and then guided. So there's the schools just aren't set up to do what I did in my classes. Where we've got a screen in front, everybody's paired, everybody has the exact same point of view, and it's over and over and over until you get it just perfect.
Yeah.
And then doing it perfectly over and over and over and over. So I didn't find that out until 2012, and I graduated in 1980. So 32 years after I graduated, thinking I'm a teacher, and I actually had the protocols. I had the right stuff, but I didn't know how to get people to duplicate what I did until I went and learned what deliberate practice is. So everybody knows who Vince Lombardi is. And one of the slides that I use is from a 1963 confrontation he had with the Green Bay Packers, where they messed up a couple of plays while playing the Chicago Bears at the old Soldier Field. And so they screwed up two plays in a row. And during halftime, he said, and it's become a pretty famous quote, he says, "Practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect." And he actually made them stay after the game at Soldier Field and practice. So that's one of the things that made a big impact on me once I started learning how to get people to be good. And then once they go through these kind of repetitions and they know all the fine points, a person actually becomes self-coaching. And so you get better on your own because you know what to look for and what it feels like. And like I said, I adjust on an indicator. You find a certain indicator, you do what I show you, the indicator should clear or reduce. And so that's kind of how it works. So I've been in this, 46 years now, and I don't get everything the first time. I have to do things over because, I'm human. I do the best I can, and don't get it the first time. You do it the second, third, fourth time if you need to. So
They call it practice for a reason, right?
yes, yeah, exactly.
We are in practice.
One of these days, people say, well, where are you in your, self-evaluation? I said, well, it's been 46 years now. I'm approaching a 7 on a scale of 10. I think I can get a lot better. Yeah, so I push myself all the time.
That's fantastic. And you've said so many times, how long are you going to practice?
Until I can't. I get it all the time. I'm 70 now. I'll be 71 in September. And I actually had a patient today. She's 41 and her daughter is 18. And they said, "Dr. Charette, it took us so long to find this great chiropractor we found. What are we going to do when you retire?" So I say the same thing to everybody. I say, number one, I'm not going to retire. And I said, so if I can't adjust you, it means I'm dead.
Yeah. I think you've told me many times that you're going to die while adjusting someone.
As long as somebody isn't close to my age or older, I usually follow it up with something like, and it sounds a little arrogant, but it isn't. I said, and besides, I'm going to outlive you anyway.
Yeah, it's all super fun that you love what you do, and it's very apparent. Very apparent. What is one lesson you've learned in practice that you wish you'd known earlier?
Well, you gave me a couple of questions to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read this experience I had popped into my head, like right there.
Please share.
And so I've explained that I lived with Dr. Greenewalt in this mansion in Davenport. And so I'm in student clinic. And I have a patient, and it's the first time it happens in my career. And I'm still a student doctor, and this patient decides not to come back. They don't know. And I didn't really know why. Was it working, not working? Did they have a person who said, I'm a quack, don't go to those? I just don't know. So I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and I've got this like depressed, long face on, and Dr. Green goes, "What's wrong?" And I explained to him what happens. So he says, "Write this down," because I had my homework in front of me. And he had me write down S period, W period. Anyways, SW, 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 WN. And I look and I'm like, what is SW, SW? He says, "Some will, some won't. So what? Who's next?" And so he taught me that, hey, life's a numbers game.
Mm-hmm.
And when you focus on what you want instead of what you don't want, things work out. Now, there's no problem, I think, trying to find out, why did you not come back, this or that? And what I found over the years, patients discontinue care for a multitude of reasons. Number one, it worked really well on the first couple of treatments, and they're feeling no pain. And I mean, I've trained you to the point where you know that just because somebody doesn't hurt doesn't mean something isn't wrong that you can't improve. And then with the advent of wellness care, people coming in when they feel good, which is my focus now, getting people well, asymptomatic, and then keeping them there with periodic adjustments, I think is the way to go. And so that's one reason they feel great. Other ones is it didn't help fast enough. A lot of people think you go in, spend years misaligning yourself, and then one treatment and you're supposed to get all lined up. Well, that doesn't happen. Sometimes it's financial. Sometimes they have a relative, a spouse that says, oh, my uncle was paralyzed by a chiropractor. I mean, none of those things have actually happened, but people like, oh, I'm going to discontinue. And then sometimes it's a personality thing. They don't like how you present yourself.
That bedside manner.
Yeah, and that type of thing. So there's lots of reasons that way. So that's what I would say. I wish I knew that early on because I wrote that down and didn't really come back to it till years later. And I utilize it all the time, and whether I'm teaching doctors or students. I talk about the story of Dr. Greenwald having me write SW, SW, SWWN. And so when my attitude now is if a patient drops off care, I know a space for somebody else.
Sure.
Okay, boom, and it fills in right away.
Yeah.
And a month later, I don't even remember what happened because I'm just focused on treating the people that are there and not worrying about the people that once were there.
Yeah.
And every practitioner is that way. So some experience it more than others.
Yeah.
And so I have a relatively low rate, I think.
That's what everyone seeks for, right? I would probably add as well that in my little experience compared to yours, we can't help everyone. And I have found that when you dwell on the few who you can't help, it really impacts the many who you can.
Amen. That is what I learned. That is the lesson that you said. What is the one lesson I could convey to everybody? Is get over it.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah.
It's never going to help you. In fact, it's actually going to hurt you.
Yeah.
What you think about grows. So why not think about what you've done well, what you can do to promote your practice, maybe add different things in your practice that will help people as opposed to, oh my gosh, this person quit. Because that never helps. It just never helps.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we're coming down to the last few minutes of our conversation. I did want to ask probably one more question, but okay. If you had 5 minutes with every person in your city, what would you teach them about their spine or about their health, or what would you tell them in general?
I would prepare a very well-worded 5-minute presentation that would focus on explaining to people, hey, the nervous system, which is what we deal with, is unbelievably important. The nervous system controls every function in the body. And when joints misalign, malposition, and whatnot, they create a dysfunction. And so if you can keep the body balanced and free, that is very important. Mm-hmm. Okay? And secondly, due to the activities of daily living, sitting, sleeping, lifting, doing everything everybody normally does, misalignments, what we call subluxations, occur. So it's really good to get regular adjustments. So the nervous system controls things. Get regular adjustments. And third, learn proper posture. Sitting properly, sleeping properly. This is stuff that I go over with all of my patients. So those three things, the nervous system controls everything, get regular adjustments, and pay attention to your posture, especially when you're younger. The use of cell phones, computer screens, all these things, there's proper ways to do things nowadays that most people aren't trained on. And it's one of the things that I spend plenty of time educating my patients prior to an adjustment.
That's fantastic. Amen to that.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you, Doc, for joining me on this podcast. I hope that the listeners have enjoyed learning something about the chiropractic profession. Expect more from your physicians and hope that find someone who knows how to adjust all of the parts of your body so you get the best care possible. Thank you again for listening. How can someone reach out and contact you, Doc, if they are interested in Texas area to come and visit you?
The best way really is my cell phone number. I respond best by texting
Okay.
since my ringer is off virtually all the time. So my phone number is, or text number is 972-890-4776. And I'm real good about returning texts real quickly.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thank you again for all the listeners. We hope that we see you, or we have you join us on our next episode. We'll see you next time.